buen día.
Hola, Alfredo, ¿me escuchas? I don't think he hears me. Alfredo, ¿me escuchas? Alfredo.
Le escucho.
Muy bien, muy bien. Can he see me? Where's and the interpreter? Michael?
Yep, I hear you.
Okay, good. Sorry, we're still waiting for Gerald. I don't know where he went. There he is. There's Alfredo. Can he see us? This is kind of okay. So
Puedes ver a Nathan, ¿verdad?
Sí.
Sí. Yeah, we can see you fine.
okay. Sorry, we can't. It's hard to tell. Okay, so Michael, why don't you start translating from this point on, if that's all right?
Voy a seguir traduciendo a partir de ahora.
Okay, so we'll just start right away. Is that all right, Gerald?
Yeah. Can I have water?
Yeah.
Vamos a empezar de una vez.
So my name's Nathan Einbinder. Thanks for coming, everyone.
Mi nombre es Nathan Einbinder. Gracias a todos por estar aquí.
So we're just going to we have a shortened session today. It's a lunch session. It's going to be for 45 minutes.
Tenemos una sesión corta de 45 minutos.
And we're going to be talking today about drought. And so last year on the online conference, I put together Gerald Miles here and my friend Alfredo Cortez. Alfredo is calling in from Guatemala, from a community called Chesiguan. And I've been working with Alfredo for a number of years, and when I met Gerald, I started to really see some amazing similarities in just how they look at farming and food and culture and identity and all these different things. So I wanted to put them together, and I did last year, talking about well-being. Do you want to...
El año pasado fue la primera vez que Alfredo y Gerald se conocieron o que estaban en una sesión juntos hablando del tema de buen vivir o bienestar. Y bueno, los dos son mis amigos. Conozco a don Alfredo por muchos años. Trabaja y vive en una comunidad de Bajo de la Paz, Guatemala, que se llama Chesiguan. Y cuando conocí a Gerald me di cuenta que tenían muchas cosas en común como agrónomos. Entonces estoy muy contento poder tener otra conversación con Gerald y Alfredo juntos.
This year they've invited us to come back. It was a very popular session, and so this year I propose that we speak about drought. And as most of you know, we had an unprecedented drought this last summer here in the UK. Some people have told me it's the worst they've ever experienced, and if you look at some of the climatology records, it could be the worst that's been seen here in like 1,000 years. So Gerald farms in Wales, and Alfredo's farming in Guatemala. They're both experiencing very new conditions of drought. And so for this session, I'm proposing that we listen to some perspectives and maybe some conversation between them about how they're confronting drought, what drought looks like in their region, and being traditional or indigenous farmers, what kinds of ways what kind of measures are they putting into place to be able to deal with this drought? And I'm going to ask Gerald to talk a little bit about the kind of crops that he's recuperating, black oats and maybe some other crops, as a way to deal with that. And Alfredo as well, what kind of native crops are going to be able to withstand these new conditions. Michael?
Sí, como dando seguimiento al tema que tratamos el año pasado, este año vamos a enfocar en la sequía, porque tanto en Rabinal, que está en el corredor seco, que también en Wales, el año pasado sufrió la sequía más prolongada, más fuerte que podemos recordar en la historia de esta área, ¿verdad? Y el tema es como los dos practican la agricultura tradicional indígena de sus áreas. En parte de la conversación se trata de los cultivos nativos que ellos están tratando de recuperar, ¿verdad? Y cómo estos cultivos pueden aguantar la sequía.
So maybe we'll start with Alfredo, if that's all right. If Alfredo could introduce himself, where he's from, the community, and what kind of farming he's doing, and maybe just begin to talk about how the drought has been affecting him in the last few years.
Bueno, empezamos con su persona, don Alfredo, y si usted puede hablar, primero presentarse, quién es, de dónde viene, dónde vive, sus prácticas agrícolas y lo que usted ha visto últimamente con el tema de la sequía. Su arte.
Buen día, mi nombre es Alfredo Cortez, galego. Vivo en una comunidad en Guatemala, Xisiguán, como ya mencionaron los amigos. Trabajo la agricultura familiar o la agroecología familiar. Su fin, pues, es adaptarnos a los cambios climáticos de las grandes sequías, las canículas prolongadas, las pérdidas de tierra fértil por fuertes aguas y por mucha sequía. Bueno, es un problema de la sequía bastante difícil de enfrentar una agricultura artificial. Debemos trabajar una agricultura más con fines de cuidar todo nuestro suelo y nuestros materias primas o un suelo fértil, tener un suelo fértil y tener un suelo sano para poder producir ante la crisis de sequía y otros problemas.
So, good morning, everyone. My name is Alfredo Cortez. I live in the community of Xisiguán, Guatemala. And I've been practicing for a long time family farming, family agroecology. And as Nathan was saying, we see this as an important way to confront the conditions of drought, which are affecting our territory. And first of all, it's about protecting the quality of our soils. With these conditions of drought that we've been facing, if we don't have a fertile soil, if we don't have healthy soil, it's extremely difficult to be able to farm.
Maybe you could ask Alfredo, Michael, to explain what the last few years have looked like. I know that this past year there was a good wet year, but in general, the last 10 years, what's going on there in comparison to what the norm is? What what his grandparents saw, what he saw as a kid, what has changed? What does the drought look like?
Bueno, sabemos que este año pasado fue, gracias a Dios, fue un buen invierno, ¿verdad? Pero si nos podría como dar la panorama de los últimos 10 años, digamos, en Rabinal y cómo es diferente para usted, digamos, haciendo agricultura hoy en día a comparación de, digamos, cómo fue para sus abuelos, ¿verdad? Hace años. ¿Cuál ha sido el cambio?
Sí, bueno, la agricultura de los últimos 10 o 15 años fue, bueno, hace unos 15 años fue como todavía suelo fácil, se le aplicaba sus nutrientes químicos, se daba. Últimos 10 años le echaban el químico y los resultados eran muy difíciles. Vino la sequía, terminó con mucha escasez, el suelo se enfermó, suelo que ya no es fértil, y entonces y vino las grandes sequías, el productor pierde su cultivo de maíz, perdió diversidad de cultivos en su troja, en su rastrojo, en su milpa, las plantas ya no son capaces de resistir las sequías tan grandes. Bueno, venimos trabajando nosotros siempre en cuidar un poco, hacer un poco más el uso de la agricultura orgánica. Pensamos en trabajar agroecología, un programa de agroecología comunitaria. Pues en ese caso, mi persona, pues he tenido muy buenos resultados, aunque haya grandes sequías.
So things have changed quite a bit since the grandparents' generation. It used to be that plants were very responsive to any input that you gave the crops. Yields tended to be pretty good. But in the last 10 years or so, drought has become much more common, and along with that is the soil quality has 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 really declined. Um, Plants have a much harder time um, withstanding the droughts that are becoming much more frequent these days in Rabinal.
Una, una consecuencia de estas sequías grandes, ya no hay mucho empleo, no hay dónde trabajar, ha habido escasez de alimentos, la gente busca alimentos, ya no hay suficiente, ah, tenemos problemas muy fuertes en la migración, no solo fuera, sino que van como la capital de Guatemala a hacer trabajos eh, eh, muy de área urbana sin tener una vida tan agradable. Consecuencias que ha habido y pérdidas de, de prácticas también. La sequía trajo pérdidas de práctica, la gente ya no practica porque ya no llueve, entonces ya no hay resultado lo que hace.
So one of the consequences of the drought has been just lack of opportunity to work, whether that means working on your own land, growing your own food, or working on somebody else's land, working locally in the community, even if you're providing your services to another local farmer. And so what it's meant is that for a lot of people in the Rabinal community, they've needed to migrate. They needed to migrate to Guatemala City or to the United States. And of course, that carries with it serious consequences in terms of the family's ability to remain close and united. And it has significant implications in terms of the ability to pass on this way of farming that has been around for thousands of years, passed down from parents to children. Over the years, this pattern of migration, this need to leave the community in order to find work, makes it much more difficult to be able to sustain these practices of Maya agroecology.
Great. I'm gonna pause for a second. I'd love to ask Alfredo some of the specific things that he's doing as a farmer to build resilience, but I'm gonna pass the word over to Gerald, have him speak a little bit on the same topics, and then we'll do a little back and forth. How does that sound?
That's fine.
Yeah. Maybe you can share that with Alfredo, Michael.
Muy bien, gracias Alfredo. Esto fue unos comentarios introductorios. Vamos a dar la palabra a Gerald, también va a dar unos comentarios introductorios y luego vamos a profundizar un poco más sobre los temas, hablando más a fondo sobre las siembras específicas que ustedes están recuperando bajo estas condiciones de sequía.
Thank you, Alfredo. So Gerald, why don't you tell us who you are? If I'm sure everybody knows, he's the most famous man at the ORFC. You guys think that?
Oh no.
And just maybe a little bit about where you are, what you're farming,
Yeah.
and your experience with this past drought, and if there's other droughts that you can speak of, feel free to share. It's awesome.
Yeah. And it's better if we stop in short bits so you can translate.
Yeah, I think
okay?
so.
Yeah. Well, I'm Gerald Miles. I'm an organic farmer from Pembrokeshire. It's the farm is called Kyrie's Organic Farm. It's been organic for 30 years. Before we turned organic, we used to grow 50 acres of potatoes and about 30 acres of corn, and we had 60 Frisian cows those were the main income on the farm then. I used to employ about 34 people, local people. 20 of them were women from the locality that worked with me for 20 years, planting and picking the potatoes by hand. And it was great times having that on the farm. Shall I stop?
Es Gerald y trabajo en una finca orgánica. Llevo 30 años trabajando orgánicamente. Nosotros cosechamos. Gerald, could you repeat the numbers? You said the certain number of acres of corn and acres of potatoes and the number of employees that you have?
Yeah, 50 acres of potatoes, 30 acres
50 acres de papas, 30
30
acres.
30,
I'm sorry, finish and then I'll translate.
30 acres of corn, and I used to employ about 30, well, a bit more than, but 34 local people.
30 acres de maíz y tenía empleado 34 personas de la comunidad local, 20 de ellos mujeres, y el trabajo era bien alegre, cosechando a mano todas las papas y todo.
Yeah, at that time, I'll never forget during 1976, most likely most of you weren't born, and I don't know. Oh. That was, to me, it was a great drought. In fact, worse than last year. It was so dry that the grass fields were turning brown, and there were no grass for the cows. I was feeding them straw, but oddly enough, they seemed to be content. They used to lie down, well, they couldn't graze, so they lay down a lot. The milk level, yes, went down, but that was my main worry. I didn't make any silage at all that year. and having a drought that lasts as long as into September, it was very frightening. But when the rains came, we were grazing past Christmas, because all of a sudden, with the warmth of the soil, when the rains came, the growth exploded. But we had potatoes, and we were irrigating the potatoes. I had 3 irrigation plants going 24 hours a day. I used to get up at 3 and change the system. I had 4 young boys that were working on the potatoes, and I persuaded them to camp on the farm so that we could irrigate and change the pipelines together. It was good fun, actually, doing it in shorts and getting wet, but it was a lot of work. I had 3 tractors going, and we kept going like that for about 10 days. Why? Because if the potatoes died, if we'd go bust, there were potatoes. Once you start irrigating them, you've got to keep watering them. So that was that time, 76. I would say worse than 2022.
El año peor de sequía, aparte de este año 2022, fue en el 1976. En este entonces sufrimos una sequía que fue aún peor que lo que estábamos viendo hoy en día, pero buscamos la forma de salir adelante. No había pasto, o sea, las vacas no podían salir al campo a comer el pasto. Entonces los di de comer, como dijera.
Cañas.
Do you know how to say straw, Nathan? Tipo zacate, pero seco.
Como cañas de milpa, nada más.
Yeah, como tipo caña. Y así. Y aguantaron las vacas, como no podían salir a comer el pasto. Pasaron mucho tiempo acostados. Pero cuando por fin vino las lluvias, por el calor del suelo, la producción del zacate fue muy, muy rápido y enorme, entonces aguantaron las vacas. Igual costó con el tema de las papas, tenía que regar, tenía un sistema riego que cada rato tenía que ir rotando, tenía 3 jóvenes que me ayudaron, salíamos con tractores, instalamos el sistema aquí, lo desarmamos, lo instalamos allá, porque con las papas, una vez que se empieza a regar, hay que seguir regando, si no, no aguantan. Entonces fue difícil, pero a la vez bien divertido, porque salíamos a las 3 de la mañana en nuestros pantalonetas y nos mojamos y todo, entonces fue difícil, pero aguantamos. Eso fue el año aún peor, el único otro año que compara con esto fue este año, desde el 2022.
But the difference between then and now, we've sold the cows. The cows went in 2003 because the milk price dropped from 29 to 16, and it was uneconomic to keep them. We were losing £10,000 a year and working 16 hours a day. It was a very difficult position to make, because the decision was either double the amount of cows I had, and that's the beginning of industrial farming, because a lot of farms, that's what they did. They doubled the amount of cows. Once you double the amount of cows, you need the double amount of forage area, you need double the amount of housing. And it was a very painful decision, because they were pedigree cows. I'd known them all my life because, well, I bred them. They were registered. I knew the whole family. I knew the ones that milked better than the others, and the quality, difference in quality. They were family, and selling them was a tough decision, but the right one. Sometimes you have to make these decisions, and it's better to do that. It's better to bite the bullet. That being so, now we've got suckler herd, 30 suckler herd. So the pressure on grazing isn't so much. We're pasture fed. We grow about 10 to 20 acres of ancient grains, and they grew well through the drought. It was about 5 foot high. The wheat I cut with a binder, which is a bonkers thing to do. My father did that. The last time we did that was in 1967. And my dream was to cut it and get sheaves on the farm and get people to help, get community to really see a sheaf of wheat. And we thrashed it as well. And I'm going to try to do that every year. It's like a film, Back to the Future. And that's what I'm trying to do on the farm. But having that less stock meant this year we're shorter of silage, of haylage. We haven't got so much to last over the winter. So my son now has got to sell some of the stock, the younger stock, at least 3 months before they're ready. Why? Because to save buying in haylage. Haylage price now has shot up from £40 to £70. Big industrial farmers, tarmac farmers you call them, because they chase forage and bring it by roads from about 60 miles. They now are in forced position. They were cutting silage in December. I would never do that. There's no quality in the growth in December. So how things have changed and how climate change is affecting it, and some people don't believe in it, but we'll have to believe in it, and we'll have to adapt to it.
Give it a go, Michael. If you're curious about words, I'll try to help you. Everything about silage, haylage,
Sorry.
alimentos nada más.
Okay. I was going to ask.
Yeah.
Bueno, ¿cómo ha cambiado? Pues algunos dicen que el cambio climático no existe. Nosotros tenemos que creer, viendo con nuestros propios ojos. Ha cambiado varias cosas. Hemos tenido que tomar varias medidas de adaptación. Una de las decisiones muy difíciles que tuvimos que tomar fue vender nuestras vacas. Fue una decisión bien dolorosa porque llevaba muchos años trabajando con esas vacas. Los conocí quiénes daban mejor leche, quiénes no, cuál era el temperamento de cada uno de los animales. Pero el leche 9 a 16 bajó, casi la mitad. Entonces ya era pura pérdida, ya no había ganancia en las vacas, entonces las teníamos que vender. Fue una decisión bien difícil, pero a veces uno tiene que tomar esos tipos de decisiones, porque la alternativa fue aumentar el número de vacas, aumentar el número de empleados, aumentar el espacio, aumentar la comida. Y si hubiera seguido este rumbo, ya estaría trabajando prácticamente de forma industrial. Entonces, eso fue una decisión difícil que teníamos que tomar. También quería contar sobre una experiencia sembrando trigo, que trigo es una de las cosechas nativas de donde nosotros vivimos. Y nosotros usamos aparatos, no sé la palabra en español, pero el aparato, digamos. ¿Ah?
Antiguos.
Sí. Herramientas antiguas para desgranar el trigo. Y esto ha vuelto en algo muy, muy divertido porque es comunitario. Invito a las personas de la comunidad a desgranar el trigo. Entonces es como la película Regresar al Futuro, porque nosotros estamos recuperando algunas prácticas ancestrales que muchas personas no lo practican todavía, pero nosotros lo estamos tratando de recuperar.
Should I switch to him and ask him? Or you?
Yeah.
And Gerald, if you could speak up just a little bit, the mic is not so strong, so I have a little bit of a hard time hearing you.
Sorry.
That's much better, yeah.
Okay. I'll shout.
Let's switch back to Alfredo, and I'm going to ask a question or two, and then we'll open it to the audience. But I'd like to ask Alfredo just a brief question, and then Gerald to elaborate a little bit on the practices, specifically the practices, and then potentially the crops that Alfredo is using to confront, long dry periods, periods of abnormal warmth and heat. What kind of, is he having success, with ancestral practices or new practices? Just give us kind of a glimpse of what he's doing to build resilience to the drought.
Perdón, tenía el micrófono silenciado. Bueno, regresando a usted, don Alfredo, si nos podría contar específicamente sobre las prácticas que ha utilizado y qué éxitos le ha brindado para enfrentar la sequía. Y dos, cosechas específicas, algunas cosechas específicas que ha utilizado, que sí han tenido éxito a pesar de la sequía. Don Alfredo, creo que hay que estar en silencio. Ahí está.
La práctica la práctica que hemos empezado en la parcela es utilizar abono orgánico, conservación de suelo, recuperar plantas como nativas del área, resistente a sequía, semillas nativas, usar lombricompostera, bokashi, y en los últimos años pues mejorar el abono orgánico, innovarlo un poquito más para tener un resultado más positivo y que dé rendimiento en los cultivos. El cultivo principal hay un cultivo que bastante sí resiste a las grandes sequías. Hablemos a uno de los más fuertes y es fuente de que ingrese económico es el café. Es una planta arbusto, pasa la sequía y se mantiene, cae el agua y florea y da cosecha. Bueno, esa es una. Y mantenemos el sistema agroforestal, donde hay vinculación banano, yuca, frutales, hierbas. Bueno, y esos son también, estamos como en intermedio, estamos como en la mitad, que sí aguanta la sequía y sí es un sistema agroforestal. Y en el maíz, granos básicos y hortalizas más sensibles como cebolla, hablemos de una cebolla, frijol, maíz, pues es un cultivo que es de corto tiempo y hay etapas en donde se cultiva. Lo que hacemos es crear bancos de aguas y regar en el momento que haya mucha sequía. Pues hemos hecho esas prácticas para tratar de cosechar algo cuando las sequías son grandes.
Okay, so practices. So first, organic fertilizer is really important. We do both worm composting as well as bokashi. So we generate a lot of organic compost. Also, soil conservation measures. Our parcel is on a very steep slope, and so we use live barriers, essentially contour barriers, to be able to prevent loss of topsoil. And then we're trying to recuperate native plants that are resistant to climate change. More on those in just a second. As I said, we're doing these traditional soil conservation practices, generating organic compost, but also trying to innovate new systems of generating good quality soil and new systems of conserving topsoil. As far as crops, we use really a agroforestry system that has multiple layers, and of course, the shade. So we start with kind of the top layer, which is our banana trees and our fruit trees, and these provide shade for the intermediate layer, and then the lowest layer that's close to the ground, and that helps significantly in allowing the crops to be able to last longer, even in conditions of drought. So as far as specific crops go, coffee has been very successful. It can last a long time without water, and then the moment the rain falls, the flowers come out, and the plant is able to produce. So within sort of our agroforestry system, like I said, we have bananas at the top layer. We grow yucca, fruit trees, small herbs and vegetables, native crops like we grow. And then for crops that are a little more to water, we grow corn, onion, beans. What we do is we keep small reservoirs of water on our land, and when there's an extended drought, we open that reservoir and we're able to irrigate in an emergency situation, so that the crops can make it through the dry spell.
Thanks. Gerald, do you have would you want to ask a question of anything related to this right off the bat?
Not at the moment.
Okay.
No.
Okay. Good. Gracias. Thanks, Alfredo. We'll ask Gerald the same question, and then maybe we'll open the floor for a conversation.
No, gracias, Alfredo. Ahorita vamos a poner la misma pregunta a Gerald.
Gerald, if there's any, or even if you're because drought is kind of infrequent, but could become much more frequent, if there's any practices that you have done or are thinking about doing to confront it,
Yeah, well, our CSA, our vegetables in the CSA, they suffered the drought this year. And we've got less amount of harvest to last us over the winter. We do need to make a irrigation system into vegetables. We are applying for funding for that now. We need that badly. We have got a reservoir on the farm, and we need to pipe from there and get a pump and a system in place then. As far as drought is concerned, the weather is changing, and the weather is getting hotter, and we will get a drought again. It's something we got to plan for and conserve for. Like we're thinking possibly we'll have to keep less stock. We'll see, because most of our land we've kept permanent pasture, about 40 acres of permanent pasture, and we'll have to possibly look at crops like oats as a feeding. Oats is very versatile. Apart from grain, you can make forage out of it. You can even graze it. It's fast growing, and it adapts to the weather better. So the day of the ryegrass, I think, has gone. You know, we've got to change to that. It is serious, and we've got to look at way of changing the way we are farming. I'd like to plant more trees on the farm and make it more resilient, and have, like you were saying, having shades, and perhaps consider agroforestry.
Michael?
Sí, sin duda, el tiempo está cambiando. Como decía Alfredo, yo quisiera tener más árboles en la parcela porque es necesario para que haya sombra. También, como decía Alfredo, tenemos reservorios de agua, pero para nuestras verduras lo que hacemos es armamos como cajas de verduras y las personas en la comunidad pueden solicitar, por ejemplo, una caja semanal y nosotros les entregamos verduras y es una fuente de ingreso para nosotros. Pero estos huertos necesitan de mucha agua. Entonces, sí, nosotros estamos ahorita gestionando para un sistema de riego que puede brindar agua a estas hortalizas, porque sí es necesario. Entonces, sí, el tiempo sí está cambiando. Antes teníamos 40 acres de pastoral, yo creo que así se llama, donde las vacas podían salir y comer y todo. Yo creo que eso va a tener que cambiar. Y bueno, una de las cosechas que sí tiene viabilidad, que sí aguanta un poco la sequía, son es la avena. Es la avena. Entonces yo creo que eso va a ser uno de los grandes cambios que vamos a hacer, es invertir más en lo que es la avena.
Does anyone have the time? Oh, 1 minute left.
Flippy neck. Okay.
Wow. Maybe just time for one question then from the audience.
No.
Oh, I thought we had like...
No, throw all the questions. I'm an activist. We'll go over time.
Can we go a bit over time?
I think there's a bit of a break between this session, so if anyone needs to run off, but if you want to say 5 minutes.
Okay, cool.
Someone must have a question here. Don't make me call on you.
Right. Globally, how can we all help, like Alfredo and you, Wales? Because I think this is a global thing. We can't just sort of fix problems on a small scale. We've got to unite and work together, sort of, worldwide.
Michael, do you want to translate that? Did you hear that?
I didn't hear. If you could repeat the question.
He asked, how could we as a global community help Alfredo and Gerald in this? We're all in this together. It's not just individual farmers, but, the question is, what could we do?
La pregunta es, ¿qué podemos hacer como un pueblo internacional para ayudar? Porque no es solo Alfredo, no es solo Gerald, pero muchos están en esta situación. Entonces, ¿qué es lo que deberían de estar haciendo a nivel mundial para ayudar ante esta situación?
O consumidores, solo.
O consumidores, ¿qué deberían de saber o hacer los consumidores?
Do you want to go, Alfredo?
Sí. Bueno, la situación es bastante complicada, pero creo de que hay que trabajar programas de organización comunitaria o organización de gobierno a recuperar muchas prácticas, agricultura comunitaria, porque hay espacio donde trabajar y cuidar la salud del suelo para que nuestro suelo no pierda su salud y que no sea productivo, es no seguir degradando nuestro suelo, que es la madre donde la raíz de las plantas se ubica y produce alimentos. El problema más grande que puede ser es los alimentos, que va a ser muy escasa. Bueno, va a haber alimento de otra naturaleza, pero va a enfermar a nuestra población. Entonces no vamos a vamos a solucionar uno, se soluciona uno artificialmente, pero se crea un problema más serio. Va a haber más hospitales, va a haber más enfermedades. Entonces creo de que es puro trabajo de producir lo que comemos, recuperar la salud del suelo y producir lo que comemos y abastecer productos muy sanos, muy saludables a nuestra población o a nuestro mundo, para que nuestro mundo poco se enferma y que sea menos gasto a un estado de que son establecimientos innecesarios como grandes hospitales. Sí, es cierto que hay que tenerla, pero son especiales, ya de casos especiales muy por naturaleza, pero ya si es provocado por una mala alimentación, por un ambiente que no es saludable, por problemas que el hombre ha provocado y su consecuencia es grande, creo que la manera más es recuperar una vida saludable desde nuestro suelo, la salud del suelo, la salud del agua, la salud del ambiente, que es la madre y fuente, es el concepto. De ahí nace la raíz del alimento, la raíz de nuestros sagrados alimentos, debe ser el suelo. Si no vamos a tener suelo fértil en todo comunidades del mundo, si no vamos a ser productores de alimentos sanos, no vamos a recuperar nuestro suelo. No, tenemos que innovar nuestra agricultura orgánica, hay que innovarla, hay que recuperar el arte de la práctica de la agricultura ancestral e innovarla también a nuevos conocimientos, que lo que nosotros hemos empezado, como usar la materia prima o descubrir qué tenemos, porque tenemos mucha materia prima, pero no sabemos qué tiene. Tenemos que estudiar más, investigar más qué propiedades tienen nuestros minerales, nuestra materia prima, para poder aplicar como sostenible, preparar nuestros propios fertilizantes orgánicos, cuidar nuestro suelo. Hay mucha área en el mundo que es área rural, área comunitaria, pero se ha perdido la práctica de producir alimentos sanos, y los cambios que vienen como cambios climáticos, sí es cierto, hay sequías grandes, pero nos tenemos que adaptarnos y preparar cómo conservar humedad en nuestro suelo, en nuestro área de cultivo. Eso pues creo que se necesita, como siempre decimos, vamos a tener que hacer una agricultura inteligente, climáticamente inteligente. Vamos a hacer una agricultura climáticamente inteligente desde nuestro área rural, porque es donde tenemos el área de cultivo, y en fincas, pues, pero solo se necesita voluntad, actitud.
Bueno, first of all, the foundation, the foundation for what needs to happen as a global community is we need to return to this understanding of Mother Earth. And you know, the foundation here is we need rich, high quality, healthy soils. We're losing so much on a global level. We're losing so much of our topsoil, so much of our healthy soils. And so one of the most important things we can do, again, from this concept of Mother Earth, is taking care of Mother Earth by taking care of the topsoil. If we do that, then we have the basic conditions to be able to eat healthy. There's always going to be a need for hospitals. People are always going to get sick from time to time, but we're seeing that so much of the sickness and disease in our world today is simply simply a consequence of the fact that we're not eating healthy, organic, natural food. And so that's really the foundation: restoring topsoil, recuperating the art of ancestral farming practices. It's true, we're facing drought. Climate change is very much with us. And so we need to also innovate. We have to find new strategies for restoring, for making sure we have good, high quality organic soil, strategies for maintaining for retaining moisture in our soils. All of these things are critical for us to be able to face climate change. And of course, we need to move, like Gerald was saying, we need to move towards community farming, having people eat, either grow the foods, either eating the foods that they grow themselves on their land, or sharing with people in their local communities. But this move towards community agriculture is also very important.
Thanks, Michael. I think we're getting kicked out of here, but I want Gerald to be able to just comment for 1 second, if that's possible.
Yeah, I will. I'll try to do it as quickly as possible. Yes, to stay as a community, to buy local. I'm now I visited France in July to look at cooperatives, because I'm keen to get more people growing ancient grains. Because one of the things in Wales, we're buying flour from Shipton Mill. Half of the flour comes from Canada and half of it from England. Why can't Wales feed itself with sourdough from ancient grains that are built, that are grown in Wales? And the main thing that stands against that is machinery. And in France, they were sharing cleaners, sharing mills, sharing all the equipment. And one thing I want to create is a cooperative for growers, like having hubs. They can borrow the machine to process the grain and then process it and have a contract straight with the baker. Because it goes to a middleman and the farmer gets the least price. And we've got to change to adapt, to work like cooperatives. And yes, we as farmers will have to, big industrial farmers will have to change. They will be forced to it. At £70 a bale now, it's uneconomic. And with energy crisis going up and everything, it's adventurous times. As long as we stay healthy, it'll be fine. But it's challenging. And on the farm ourselves, we're finding it very challenging. Like our CSA, we'd like to have more members. And we need more members to be economic. So I would suggest you support your local producers, your local CSAs, and whatever farmers sell direct. If we keep our economic circle within our own community, I think Greenpeace did a research, this is way out of date, but £1 if spent in the community is 300% better off for the community. So look after ourselves.
Michael, you want to translate that? And then unfortunately, we got to run because the room's going to get used again.
Muy en breve, el mensaje es lo mismo, apoyar los agricultores locales, utilizar en nuestro área de empleo, utilizar los granos no depender tanto de granos importados.